Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1615B, and today's date is July 13th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Hammer is Falling, the Plan is on Track. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, a couple of reports back, we talked about how the SEC is investigating why Facebook didn't disclose Cambridge Analytica data breach. And what we're finding out is the SEC is looking into whether Facebook's failure to warn investors about the potential for third-party developers to misuse their data represents a violation of disclosure laws. Essentially, the crux of the SEC investigation is whether the fact that Cambridge Analytica improperly used Facebook users' data represented material information that should have been disclosed to investors. One former SEC enforcement attorney said that if Facebook was making money from its developer relations, then not disclosing the misuse could raise red flags. The SEC can at most give Facebook maybe a slap on the wrist, but the other agencies that are participating in the investigation have the authority to potentially bring down the entire company. And Q did warn about this and how Facebook was going to be brought up, most likely YouTube, Google next, and we see that this investigation is ongoing right now and things are happening. And we also know that YouTube, Twitter, Google, they're not just going to give in, they're going to fight back. And as we can see, they've been trying to fight back with putting these systems together where they try to fight fake news, and that's what they call it. And they're trying to give us the real news. And we see that YouTube, they are moving in that direction right now. They spent something like $25 million, and they're going to say this is the appropriate news. This is the news that's out there that's truthful. And of course, people are grown-ups. People can make their own decisions. People can look at the data, the information, the facts, and they can look at what is going on. Now, once again, all they're going to do is they're going to shift everyone to the corporate media. That's what they like to do. They're helping the corporate media become more popular on YouTube. That's their real plan here. And what is happening is they realize that they need to convince people that the corporate media, well, this is the true news. This is the real news. Now, people are going to look at this and people are going to say, well, let me do some research. Let me take a look and let's see if they're telling me the truth. The same thing that happened last time when people started to say, let me see what's real and what's fake. And people started to move away from the corporate media. Trying to force people back to the corporate media, it's not going to work unless they start putting out the truth. And you know that's not going to happen. All they're going to do is they're going to try to spin it in a certain way to make you think that they're telling you the truth. And once again, they're spending a lot of money doing this. Facebook has tried it, Google has tried it, and it still hasn't worked. The secret is just tell the truth. Now, yesterday we had the hearing with Strzok. He was in front of the House Judiciary Committee, and he was speaking, and, a lot of this was being done without knowing all the information because we know the IG report is redacted. We know it's classified, and they're just reading the things that were rewritten, manipulated, and they're putting it out there. But something did come out of this, which is kind of interesting. A member of the House Committee on the Judiciary said during a hearing Thursday that a government watchdog found that nearly all of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's emails were sent to a foreign entity and that the FBI didn't follow up on that finding. Now, the Intelligence Community Inspector General found an anomaly on Hillary Clinton's emails going through their private server. And when they had done the forensic analysis, they found that her emails, every single one except 4, over 30,000, were going to an address that was not on the distribution list. And this was coming from Representative Louis Gohmert of Texas. And he said this during the hearing with FBI Peter Strzok. And he went on to say, do you remember this? Did you even research this? And Strzok kept on saying, no, I remember the meeting, but I don't remember the details of the meeting, and I never did anything. Basically, Strzok knows that all the other things are classified, they're redacted, so no one can really ask him any of these questions, and he doesn't have to answer them because it's not going to be put out there. Here is the part where Gohmert was asking Strzok about Clinton's emails.
Intelligence Community, Inspector General Chuck McCulloch sent his investigator, Frank Rucker, along with an ICIG attorney, Jeanette McMillan, to brief you and Dean Chappelle and two other FBI personnel that I won't name at this time about an anomaly they had found on Hillary Clinton's emails that were going to and from the private unauthorized server that you were supposed to be investigating. Now, do you remember it?
I remember meeting Mr. Rucker on either one or two occasions. I do not remember the specific content or discussions.
Well, I'll help you with that too then. Mr. Rucker reported to those of you, the four of you there, in the presence of the ICIG attorney, that they had found this anomaly on Hillary Clinton's emails going through her private server. And when they had done the forensic analysis, they found that her emails, every single one except for four, over 30,000 of them, were going to an address that was not on the distribution list. It was a compartmentalized bit of information that was sending it to an unauthorized source. Do you recall that?
Sir, I don't.
Well, he went on to explain it, and you didn't say anything.
No.
You thanked him, you shook his hand, but the problem was that it was going to an unauthorized source that was a foreign entity unrelated to Russia, and from what you've said here, you did nothing more than nod and shake the man's hand when you didn't seem to be all that concerned about our national integrity of our election when it was involving Hillary Clinton. So the forensic examination was done by the ICIG, and they can document that, but you were given that information and you did nothing with it.
As you can see, the whole thing was very, very heated, and Gohmert is saying that the ICIG has not publicly disclosed the findings, but he said the watchdog can document them. And we see right now that this isn't going to go anywhere unless the IG report is declassified, and Q has been telling us that it's worse than we even think, and it's put out there. And who has the power to do this? Trump. And we know that Q says that this might have to be forced. Now, what's very interesting, it seems like the hammer is falling right now, because after the hearings with Strzok, and we know that Lisa Page, she didn't want to go behind closed doors and talk to the House Judiciary Committee, we see the White House now has ordered to allow all members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees to see the classified documents, rather than a small group of lawmakers known as the Gang of Eight. Now, this is very interesting, and I think what's happening here, they're letting out a little bit at a time, declassifying a little bit at a time, allowing others to see the information. And this way they can put together a case. And I think what's going to happen is by allowing this to be released, you know there's going to be leaks, you know that information is going to flow out of this. It's going to get to the public. Once it gets to the public, people are going to start questioning things. It's going to wake people up. Maybe not in the beginning, maybe they'll reject it. Most likely they will. Will they become angry? Most likely. But what we see happening here is that it is being forced out there. And the hammer is now falling. And this is the biggest fear of the deep state. Now, this is happening right now in the month of July. When we move into the end of July to August, I believe at that time that we're going to see a lot more of the IG report declassified and released to the public. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to do it in stages, and they're going to release these breadcrumbs to get people used to the idea, to let them to do a little bit of research, to read the real facts, to read the truth. And this is something that you can't fight against. You can't argue against the truth. You can't argue against the facts. It's very, very difficult. Actually, impossible. You can try, but in the end, it's propaganda always loses. And it looks like the plan is completely on track here. We see out in Saudi Arabia, well, Saudi Arabia has just issued sweeping pardons for the entire military engaged in the Yemen war. Now, this is very interesting because we know that Saudi Arabia, under the direction of the deep state, was fighting in Yemen. Now, Yemen never attacked Saudi Arabia. What happened is they removed their puppet government. And of course, the deep state didn't like this and had Saudi Arabia go in and start a war with Yemen. And to make the people pay for this, they were hitting the public. Yes, they hit military sites, but they were also hitting residential areas, transportation, farms, marketplaces, water and electricity, medical facilities, to make the people give and say, okay, we give, we'll take back the puppet government. But it didn't work. And now it seems like they're getting a little nervous because they understand there's a lot of war crimes right here. They've done quite a bit. I mean, think about what the people have been going through in Yemen. We're seeing malnutrition, disease, destruction of homes and infrastructure, almost like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and all the other wars. They made the people pay. They destroyed the countries. And now it seems like things might be turning, and Saudi Arabia is a little worried and is now pardoning the military for all these war crimes. So we'll have to see how this all plays out, but it looks like something is about to hit. Now, we see the U.S. is saying that they're going to help stabilize different areas in Syria after they remove the Islamic State, and Michael Pompeo is working with Jens Stoltenberg, working with Russia to control and stabilize these areas after they push the Islamic State groups out of there. Remember, everything has changed at this point. The deep state who supported the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and the rest of the paid mercenaries, they're kind of out of the picture right now. Yes, the military is actually going after the terrorist groups. Before, Obama was calling the shots. He was telling the military what targets to hit. Things have changed now. And we can see that everything is about to change. Now, yesterday we talked about how Trump was expecting a call from Iran. He's putting a lot of pressure on Iran right now. And what's very interesting, the entire plan to remove the soldiers out of Syria relies on Iran removing its troops. And we know the support for the paid mercenaries has been cut. Moderate rebels aren't getting paid. They're not getting training. The Kurd army is not receiving payment. We see all the supplies. They're being cut off. The borders are being secured right now with Syria and Russia. We see the borders are secured with Syria and Jordan right now. Jordan used to supply the rebels with supplies. They used to train them. And the U.S., the deep state, used to push the rebel forces from Jordan into Syria. What's happening right now is that everything is coming to an end. And Jordan right now is saying, we're out. If the Americans are not in this anymore and they're not supporting the rebels, Jordan is not going to stick around. They're not going to support the moderate rebels. And it looks like the entire operation of supporting the paid mercenary terrorists has come to an end. And as we know, Trump was out there saying, listen, the Middle Eastern countries, they need to take the place of the U.S. Now, the reason why he said that is that he knew without the U.S. support, the rest of the Middle Eastern countries, they're not going to do it. They don't have the money. They don't have the support. They don't have the ability to do this. And he knew this. And this is why it was said. We already see Jordan backing out. We already see the other Middle Eastern countries saying, you know something, we're not in this anymore. Assad can stay. Everything is changing. Now, what's very interesting is that the deal that Putin, Netanyahu, the U.S., Assad, the deal they're making right now is to have Iran leave the country. Now, we mentioned this yesterday in other reports where Putin already put out the breadcrumbs, Trump already put out the breadcrumbs, Israel already put out the breadcrumbs that if Iran leaves Syria, the U.S. would leave. Israel will allow Assad to come up to the border, like in the 1974 agreement, and Russia can stay to control the entire area. And of course, Putin came out and said all foreign troops must leave. Now, what's very interesting is in the Iranian leadership, they have just announced that if Syria and Iraq ask the military advisors, and I guess whoever else is there, to leave their countries, they will do so. We will immediately leave if Iraq and Syria governments want it. Now, what's going to happen here is that the U.S., Israel, Assad, and Russia, there's going to have to be guarantees, just like with North Korea. And I believe that's what this next meeting is, the guarantees, where if Assad goes ahead and said, listen, we don't need Iran here anymore, please remove the advisors, and he gives proof that they're all gone, he needs a guarantee from the U.S. and Israel that troops will be withdrawn from Syria. And I think this is what this meeting is going to be. I mean, one part of the meeting, this is what this is going to be about. And we're going to see a lot happen during this period of time. So this plan that we're looking at with the declassification of the IG report, with troops leaving Syria, everything seems to be on track. Now, again, the deep state, they can come up with something. They might try something big for a last Hail Mary here. They might even go nuclear. Who knows? We can't put it past them because, again, they don't want to give up control. And when they see all of this going down, they have nothing left to lose. And that's the most scariest point of this entire operation, the entire plan, where they might try something. And they might try something that's really, really big, which, takes up the news cycles, throws everything out of whack. But once again, it seems like Trump, the Patriots, they understand what is happening. They have the intel of their next move, and they can hear the chatter. So they might be able to stop them before it even happens. But what we know is that the hammer now is falling, and it's getting ready to hit. And we can see that the plan is moving forward. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.